Jake stepped into the training bay of the Kaisen warship, the echoes of a female Kaisen warrior's voice resonating in his mind. Humans are weak and fragile. The moment he was deployed as an observer on this ship, he had felt the Kaisen's scrutiny piercing through him like nails. Their muscular bodies, built for combat, radiated an undeniable aura of superiority. In their female-dominated society, strength was measured by size and physical prowess, leaving Jake as an enigma they were eager to decipher. Each time he felt their eyes on him, a pang of discomfort washed over him, but he reminded himself of his mission: observe their combat training, learn their tactics, and report back to Earth Command. Yet, from the moment he boarded, the Kaisans had regarded him with thinly veiled scorn. Their laughter and sneers echoed through the corridors, intensifying when they learned he was a special operations soldier, part of humanity's elite fighting force. In the back of his mind, he understood their perspective. To them, he was a fragile creature in a galaxy filled with warriors. In the center of the bay, a commander loomed over him, flanked by her guards. Her eyes gleamed with a mix of amusement and curiosity. "So you are the human Earth sent," she said, her voice sharp as a blade. "They say your kind are skilled, but I see no skill in that small frame. Tell me, Jake, what could someone like you teach us?" Jake stood his ground, feeling the weight of the Kaisen's laughter reverberating around him. He had dealt with egos like this before, but this was different. Their disdain was woven into the very fabric of their society. The commander's sneer was palpable, her confidence towering over him. "Very well, a test then. If you can spar with one of my warriors, I'll acknowledge your ways. But if you fail, perhaps you'll learn your place here." Jake nodded, a silent agreement to let his actions speak for him. The commander gestured, and from the crowd of towering soldiers, one stepped forward, Aura. She was massive, even by Kaisan standards, clad in combat armor that gleamed under the harsh lights of the training bay. Her biceps rippled under the metallic sheen, and her reputation as the best of the Kaisan warriors preceded her. Whispers rippled through the ranks, a mix of awe and anticipation. "I'll try not to break you, human," Aura grinned, stepping into the circle. Jake returned her smile, fully aware of the challenge ahead. In any other situation, brute strength and size would typically prevail, but he knew this match was about more than just physicality. It was about strategy and quick thinking. He had trained for this moment his entire life, honing his skills in hand-to-hand combat, grappling, and agility. The room fell silent as the two faced off. Aura circled him, her heavy boots thudding on the metallic floor, a rhythmic cadence that echoed her confidence. Jake remained light on his feet, tracking her every move, his mind racing through scenarios and possibilities. He wore no armor, just his standard-issue combat suit, light and flexible, designed for agility. As Aura lunged forward with surprising speed, Jake dodged to the side, narrowly avoiding her outstretched fist. The wind from her punch brushed past him, a reminder of the strength she wielded. She followed with a flurry of powerful blows, each one a hammer strike aimed at crushing him. Jake focused on his breathing, calming his mind as he assessed his opponent. He knew he had to be fast, unpredictable. But it was also essential to understand that every opponent had a pattern. He watched as Aura moved, noting the strength in her strikes, but also the predictability. She relied too heavily on her power, and that would be her undoing. Finally, the moment came. Jake seized an opportunity, delivering a blow that barely registered against Aura's thick armor but was enough to unbalance her. Before she could recover, he executed a sweep kick, sending her sprawling. The Kaisans gasped in surprise as Aura hit the floor, stunned for just a moment. For Jake, the seconds felt like hours, his heart racing as he capitalized on the opening. With reflexes honed from years of combat training, Jake moved quickly, pinning her arm behind her back and retrieving her dagger from its sheath, the blade hovering ominously over her neck. Silence enveloped the room. Then he stepped back, dropping the dagger, allowing her the chance to rise. Aura looked up at him, slowly regaining her composure, her eyes wide with disbelief. She had been bested. The Kaisan commander stepped forward, her expression now unreadable. "You fought well, human. Better than I expected." There was no longer a sneer in her voice, just a begrudging acknowledgement. Jake nodded, wiping the sweat from his brow, feeling the tension in the room shift. The Kaisans stood in silence, their mocking smiles replaced with something deeper, respect. He had proven what humanity could do, even when the odds seemed insurmountable. As Jake turned to leave the training bay, Aura's voice called out, "We fight again, human. I will win next time." The challenge hung in the air, a promise of future encounters. Jake smiled, sensing that he was no longer just a curiosity on the Kaisan ship. After the sparring match, the news of Aura's defeat spread through the ranks like wildfire. The Kaisans, known for their brute force and loyalty to strength, began to reconsider their views on humans. Jake had earned their respect, but it hadn't come without a cost. Every Kaisan warrior now watched him closely, curious about how he had managed to outmaneuver one of their best. The Kaisan commander, Laura, took a particular interest in Jake's methods. Though displeased by Aura's loss, she was intrigued by how a smaller, seemingly weaker species could outthink one of her elite fighters. One day, she summoned Jake to her quarters, the atmosphere charged with a mix of tension and curiosity. "You've shown us something we didn't expect," she said, standing beside a large, projected map of the galaxy, the stars swirling in a cosmic dance. "Your kind doesn't rely fully on brute force. You adapt and use strategy." She looked at him, her face unreadable. Jake crossed his arms, keeping his expression neutral, aware of the weight of her words. "It's not just about strength, it's about using what you have to your advantage." He spoke with confidence, knowing he had earned the right to voice his thoughts. Laura raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "We plan for every scenario, we anticipate and adapt. No battle is won just by charging forward." Jake paused, letting his words sink in. "But that's exactly what many of your warriors do. You rely on strength and fear, but what happens when an enemy knows how to exploit that?" Laura's eyes narrowed, a flicker of realization crossing her face. After a long moment, she nodded. "Perhaps there is more to your species than we thought." Word of Jake's insights began to spread. The Kaisan soldiers, once dismissive, now sought him out for advice. During their training drills, Jake noticed subtle changes in their tactics. They were learning and evolving, just as he had taught them. Aura, still smarting from her loss, became his fiercest student. She challenged him again, but this time it was out of respect rather than anger or pride. During their sparring sessions, Jake could see the change in her movements. Aura was no longer trying to overpower him, she was learning to be nimble, to anticipate, and to use her speed and size in ways she hadn't before. One morning, as they sparred, Aura managed to land a solid strike on Jake, sending him stumbling back. It wasn't a lucky hit, she had outmaneuvered him, baiting him into a false opening. "You're learning," Jake said, getting back on his feet and rolling his shoulders. "But remember, the fight isn't over after one good hit." Aura nodded, her grin fading as she dropped into a defensive stance, the tension crackling between them like electricity. "I know," she replied, her voice steady. "But it feels good to land a hit. I understand the thrill now." Jake smiled, realizing that their rivalry was growing into a friendship. Just then, the door to the bay slid open, and Commander Laura entered, flanked by two of her top officers. Her eyes scanned the room, cold and commanding, the aura of authority radiating from her. "Jake," she said firmly, "we have a situation." Jake stood alert, instinctively ready for action. Laura motioned for him to follow her through the ship's narrow corridors, their footsteps echoing against the metal walls. "We've received a distress signal from one of our outposts on the edge of Kaisan space. It's been under attack by an unknown force." Jake frowned. "Unknown? Who could it be?" "We don't know," Laura admitted, her tone betraying a hint of frustration. "But their tactics are strange, nothing we've encountered before. They hit fast and then retreat. They're using guerrilla tactics, something we've never had to deal with. That's why I need your help." Jake glanced at her, surprised. The Kaisans were warriors, they didn't ask for help, especially not from humans. But Laura's expression left no room for doubt, she had made up her mind. "All right, let's gather the troops," he said, determination surging through him. Within moments, they were joined by Aura and several other soldiers, all of them ready to deploy. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation, each warrior fueled by a mix of excitement and anxiety. As they prepared for the mission, Jake pulled the group together, drawing from what he had learned about their fighting style, adapting the plan to suit their strengths. "Listen up," Jake began, "we'll need to set traps along their expected route, force them to engage on our terms. If they want to fight us, we'll show them we're ready." He mapped out the strategy, utilizing the Kaisen's combat strength while incorporating Earth tactics. "Use your strength but combine it with intelligence. We'll lure them in, make them think they have the upper hand." As they launched into action, the Kaisans moved with a renewed sense of purpose. It felt as though they had embraced a new identity, blending their ferocity with Jake's strategic insights. They set traps and prepared ambushes, their spirits high as they moved together as one unit. The journey to the outpost was tense, the Kaisen ship zipped through the stars, each moment stretching into an eternity. When they finally arrived, they found devastation. The outpost was in ruins, smoke rising from the remnants of what had once been a stronghold. The Kaisen warriors gritted their teeth, a mix of anger and determination coursing through them. "Spread out," Jake commanded, adrenaline surging. "Find survivors. Check for any signs of the attackers." The team dispersed, combing through the wreckage. Jake and Aura moved together, their partnership now fluid, a testament to the training they had shared. They discovered a small group of Kaisan soldiers hiding in the shadows, their faces pale and shaken. They were fast, one soldier stammered, trembling with fear. They came out of nowhere. We didn't stand a chance. Jake glanced at Aura, their expressions mirroring each other's understanding. Did you see who they were? He pressed, trying to gain any information that could aid them. The soldier shook his head, frustration and fear etched on his face. They wore strange armor, but they never gave us a chance to see more. They hit us and vanished into thin air. Laura joined them, her expression resolute. We'll draw them out again, she said, her eyes blazing with the fire of determination. We can't allow this to continue. Jake nodded, his mind racing. We set a trap. We can use what we've learned from our last fight. If they think they can catch us off guard again, they'll fall for it. Laura agreed, and they quickly developed a plan, leveraging the Kaisen's strengths and Jake's strategic insights. With urgency, they set up a perimeter, positioning themselves to wait for the next assault. Tension hung in the air as they prepared, the silence palpable. Hours passed in anxious anticipation. Jake's heart raced, he had trained for this moment his entire life. As night fell, shadows danced across the battlefield, and the stars shone brightly overhead, a stark contrast to the darkness surrounding them. Suddenly, a shrill alarm pierced the silence, breaking through the tension. They're here, a Kaisan shouted, and chaos erupted as figures emerged from the darkness, clad in the strange armor described by the survivors. They moved with an eerie precision, darting across the debris. Jake's instincts kicked in. Hold your fire. Wait for my command. The Kaisans gripped their weapons, ready to strike. The attackers darted around them, their movements fluid, almost like they were part of the shadows themselves. It was unlike anything Jake had ever seen, they seemed to blend with their surroundings, striking hard and fast. Now! Jake shouted, and the Kaisans opened fire, but the attackers were ready, swiftly retreating into the darkness. The Kaisans had underestimated them, and for a moment, panic surged through the ranks. Jake felt the pressure rise, but he quickly regained his focus. Don't chase them. They want us to follow. He glanced at the tactical display, analyzing their movements. They're trying to lure us away from the outpost. Stay together. But it was too late. The enemy had drawn a few Kaisan warriors into the open, and Jake's heart raced as he watched them disappear into the shadows, fear gripping his throat. Fall back. Regroup, he called out, knowing that if they didn't act fast, they would be overrun. As the remaining soldiers formed a defensive line, the attackers launched another wave of assaults, their tactics relentless. Jake moved to the front, fighting alongside the Kaisans, their bond forged in the heat of battle. He could feel the fear and uncertainty in their movements, but they pushed through, adapting to the chaos. The battle raged on, and Jake witnessed the resilience of the Kaisans firsthand. They fought with a ferocity that was unmatched, their determination propelling them forward even in the face of overwhelming odds. Together, they began to regain control, pushing back against the attackers. Hours passed in a whirlwind of combat, each skirmish forced them to adapt, strategizing on the fly. The enemy was relentless, But Jake could feel a shift among the Kaisans, a transformation. They began to rely on one another, working as a cohesive unit rather than individuals. With renewed energy, Jake led a charge, pushing into the fray. He felt alive, adrenaline coursing through his veins as he struck down enemy combatants alongside his Kaisan allies. Each blow landed was a testament to their training, their growth, and their unity. Finally, as dawn broke over the battlefield, the last of the attackers fell back, their retreat marked by a chaotic scramble into the shadows. The Kaisans stood victorious, their breaths heavy and ragged, but their spirits high. "We did it!" a warrior shouted, raising his weapon in triumph, and the rest of the warriors joined him, a roar of celebration echoing through the wreckage of the outpost. Jake felt a swell of pride as he surveyed his allies, no longer mere soldiers, but a unified force. As they regrouped, Laura approached Jake, her expression a mix of gratitude and newfound respect. "You've changed the way we fight, human. We're stronger now, thanks to your insights." Jake smiled, feeling the weight of their experiences solidifying their bond. "We did this together. It's not just me, it's all of you. You've shown incredible strength and resilience." Laura nodded, her gaze steady. "Our alliance has only just begun. We will forge a new path together, one that combines our strengths. Together, we can face whatever comes next." In the weeks that followed, the Kaisans and Jake continued to train, their bond deepening as they learned from one another. They developed new tactics and strategies, combining brute strength with intelligent planning. Jake felt like he was becoming part of their world, no longer just an observer but a true ally and friend. Their relationship continued to blossom, with Aura standing out as one of Jake's closest allies. She challenged him in training, pushing him to his limits, while he helped her develop new strategies that relied on her speed rather than just her power. Their bond was a reflection of their growing friendship, a powerful testament to the unity they had forged in the fires of battle. One day, as they trained in the sun-drenched training bay, Jake noticed a change in Aura's demeanor. She seemed distracted, her eyes clouded with thought. "What's bothering you?" he asked, wiping sweat from his brow as he caught his breath. "I'm just thinking about the future," Aura replied, her voice serious. "What if this isn't enough? What if they come back?" Jake paused, understanding her fear. He had shared that anxiety, especially after their initial skirmish. "We'll be ready for them," he assured her. "We've come a long way since I arrived. We're stronger now." She nodded, but her expression remained troubled. "You don't understand. We're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for our people. If we fail," her voice trailed off, and Jake felt the weight of her words. "I get it," he said softly, moving closer. "We're all in this together, and that's what makes us strong. It's not just about the battles we fight, it's about the connections we forge along the way." Aura looked at him, her gaze fierce yet vulnerable. "I've never had to rely on anyone before. But now, I can't imagine facing this without you." Jake smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "Then we won't face it alone. We'll face it together, as allies and friends." Their training sessions evolved into something deeper, a mutual understanding forged through shared experiences. They spent countless hours strategizing, honing their skills, and learning from one another. The bond between Jake and the Kaisans grew stronger with each passing day, a testament to the unity they had created. One evening, as they sat together on the observation deck, watching the stars twinkle against the vastness of space, Jake reflected on the changes he had witnessed. "I never imagined I'd find a home among the Kaisans," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Aura turned to him, her eyes sparkling with determination. "You belong here, Jake. You've proven yourself time and time again. We're stronger with you by our side." As they gazed out at the stars, Jake felt a sense of belonging he had never known before. He was no longer just an observer, he was part of something greater, a family forged in the fires of battle, built on respect and understanding. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship, shattering the tranquility of the moment. "All warriors to battle stations." Laura's voice echoed through the corridors, and Jake felt the rush of adrenaline course through him once more. "Let's go!" Aura shouted, and they rushed to the command center, where the crew was already mobilizing. Laura stood at the helm, her expression serious as she reviewed the tactical displays. "We've detected another fleet on the horizon. They're preparing to attack." Jake's heart raced. "How many are we up against?" "Reports suggest they outnumber us 3-1, Laura replied, her voice steadied despite the gravity of the situation. Jake exchanged a glance with Aura, knowing they would have to rely on every tactic they had learned. "We can't let them overwhelm us. We'll set traps and ambush them like before. We need to force them into the open where we can control the fight." Laura nodded, rallying her warriors as they prepared for battle. "Gather the troops. We'll stand united against them." As they launched into action, Jake felt the camaraderie of his comrades surrounding him, a powerful reminder of their shared bond. The Kaisans moved with purpose, their warriors ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The battle began in earnest as the enemy fleet advanced, their ships gliding through the stars like dark shadows. Jake and the Kaisans took their positions, setting up defenses and preparing to engage. When the first shots were fired, the impact reverberated through the ship, rattling Jake's resolve. But he stood firm, his determination unyielding. "Hold your fire until they're in range," he called out, focused on keeping everyone together. The enemy ships advanced, their tactics eerily similar to those they had faced before. They struck quickly, retreating just as Jake had anticipated. "Now!" he shouted, and the Kaisans opened fire, their weapons lighting up the darkness. The battle was chaotic, with explosions rocking the ship and enemy vessels weaving in and out of range. Jake fought alongside his allies, each strike a testament to their training and unity. The once divided forces had come together, their movements fluid and instinctual. For hours, they fought valiantly, but the odds began to shift against them. The enemy's relentless assaults pressed them hard, and Jake felt the weight of their determination bearing down. He called for a tactical retreat, rallying his troops to regroup. "We need to regroup and reassess. We can't let them divide us." As they fell back, Jake could feel the tension in the air, the uncertainty of what lay ahead. But he refused to give in. "We can't lose heart. We've fought hard, and we've adapted. We're stronger together." In the midst of chaos, Jake noticed Aura struggling against an enemy combatant. Without thinking, he rushed to her side, delivering a swift blow that sent the attacker sprawling. "I've got your back," he shouted, and she looked up at him, determination blazing in her eyes. Together, they fought back against the enemy, their movements synchronizing as they defended one another. "We're not alone," Aura shouted, and Jake felt the fire of their unity reignite, spreading through the ranks of the Kaisans. With renewed determination, they regrouped and launched a counteroffensive, employing the tactics they had trained together. They pushed back against the attackers, forcing them to adapt to their newfound strategies. As the battle raged on, it became clear that their combined strength was beginning to overwhelm the enemy. "Push forward," Jake urged, leading the charge as they drove the attackers back. The Kaisans rallied, their spirits lifted as they fought side by side, no longer just warriors but a united force. Finally, after hours of fierce combat, the enemy began to retreat, their ships disappearing into the vastness of space. The Kaisans roared in triumph, a victory born from their bond and resilience. As the dust settled and the adrenaline began to fade, Jake looked around at his comrades, warriors forged in battle, now a family bound by their shared experiences. "We did it," he shouted, the exhilaration of victory coursing through him. Laura approached, her expression a mix of pride and relief. "You've proven yourself once again, Jake. Your tactics have saved us." Jake felt a swell of gratitude, knowing that this victory was a testament to their unity. "We did this together," he replied, the truth resonating deeply within him. In the days that followed, the Kaisans celebrated their victory, their spirits high as they honored their fallen comrades and strengthened their bonds. Jake felt a profound sense of belonging, no longer an outsider but a vital part of their world. As he stood on the observation deck, watching the stars twinkle above, Jake reflected on the journey that had brought him here. The lessons he had learned from the Kaisans were invaluable, shaping not only his combat skills but also his understanding of what it meant to be part of a family. Aura joined him, her expression thoughtful. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jake nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "We have. I never expected to find a home among the Kaisans, but here we are." She turned to him, her eyes sparkling with determination. "Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. I won't let you down." Jake met her gaze, feeling the weight of her words. "You won't let me down. We're a team now, and together we can overcome anything." As they stood side by side, the stars twinkling above them, Jake knew that they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Their journey had just begun, but they would forge a path filled with resilience, strength, and unwavering friendship, a bond that would stand the test of time. Together, they were no longer just a human and a Kaizen warrior. They were allies, friends, and family, united against whatever the universe threw their way. And in that moment, under the vast expanse of the cosmos, Jake felt truly at home.